Okay, folks, here we go. Ready to go? Here we go. So I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Kincardine at 5 p.m. on August 26 in the Council Chambers of the Municipal Administration Centre. Roll call this evening. Deputy Mayor Hinchberger.
Present.
Councillor Blackwell.
Present.
Councillor Kavanagh.
Present.
Councillor Monroe.
Present.
Councillor Prenger. Councillor Steinhoff Gray.
Present.
Councillor Stewart.
Present.
Councillor Williams.
Present.
Deputy Mayor, please.
We would like to begin by acknowledging that we are meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which includes the Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation and the Chippewas of Saugeen First Nation, whose ancestors were the first to inhabit, care for, and live on this land. We recognize and deeply appreciate the contributions that Indigenous peoples have made, both in caring for this land and shaping and strengthening this community, our province, and our country. As a public service organization, we are dedicated to learning and acknowledging Indigenous history and culture and committed to actions that move us towards a journey of truth, healing, and reconciliation with the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, the Métis Nation of Ontario, and the historic Saugeen Métis.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Are there any amendments, additions, or deletions to or from the agenda proposed by any council members? I'd remind you to disclose pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof, either now or as it arises in the meeting. And we have the adoption of minutes. We need a mover and seconder that the minutes of the regular and special council meeting held August 12, 2026 be adopted as printed. Councillor Kavanagh and Deputy Mayor, all in favor? That's carried. So now we move into a public meeting. Under the Planning Act, first we will receive a report from planning staff. Then council members will have an opportunity to ask any technical questions. Then we'll hear from the public who are here in person, virtually, or have submitted correspondence. And members of the public are advised that the right to appeal the decision on this application is limited to specified persons and public bodies as defined in the Planning Act, or the owner or applicant of the land subject to the amendment, who have provided oral or written comments to council on the application before the decision. And after we've heard from the public, council will discuss and consider a recommendation on this application. Okay, so we move into a public meeting for file number Z 2026-033, specifically 96 Victoria Street, Inverhuron. Just a note, if anyone in the gallery is interested in this application or wishes to receive a notice of the decisions, there is a Bruce County email you can access, or there's a sheet out in the foyer where you can leave your contact information. So I now declare the meeting open, and I'd ask Bruce County Planner Amy Rogers to present the application.
Thank you, and good evening, Council, through you, Mayor. The application before Council tonight is for a zoning bylaw amendment, and the file number is Z-2026-033. The purpose of the application is for a zoning bylaw amendment to facilitate the consent for new lot creation. And as you mentioned, the subject lands do have a civic address of 96 Victoria Street in the community of Inverhuron. The subject lands are located south of Bruce Road 15, have frontage on both Victoria and Lake Streets, and are surrounded by residential and natural area land uses. The subject lands were once part of a larger parcel of land known as the Lime Kiln, with a history of industrial uses before being converted to a cottage resort. As such, the property has evolved over the years to include multiple detached dwelling units, and the subject property is zoned Residential 3 Special, R3X, and that current special provision recognizes the existing buildings and structures on the subject lands and permit 3 existing detached dwelling units. Any future development shall comply with the zoning bylaw. The zoning bylaw amendment before council tonight proposes to rezone the severed lands. So one of the existing dwelling units will be severed from the rest, and we're proposing to rezone those lands to R1. There's no special provisions proposed. It's also proposed to amend the special provisions for the existing R3X zone for the retained lands, and it is proposed to modify the wording to permit a new detached dwelling to be constructed on the retained lands following the severance. This modification will still limit the development to 3 detached dwelling units, but the restriction limiting the units to the existing dwelling units will be lifted. The proposal for consent conforms to the provincial planning statement and official plan policies of both Bruce County and Kincardine. Both the severed and retained lands exceed the minimum lot area for lot frontage and area requirements. Both the severed and retained parcels will be connected to full municipal water and sanitary services, and there are no natural hazard, natural heritage, or cultural heritage concerns on the property. The county will decide on the related consent application at a later date, and this application was circulated in accordance with the Planning Act. No comments were received in opposition to the file. Subject to any comments received at this meeting, Bruce County Planning Department is recommending that Council approve zoning bylaw amendment application Z-2026-033 and the necessary bylaw be forwarded to for adoption. And I'm available for any questions if Council has them.
Thank you, Amy. Are there any questions from Council on a technical basis? Okay, now we turn to members of the gallery. Is there an agent or applicant here that would like to speak to the report? Nope. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in support or in opposition to this application? Anyone here who would like to speak in support of or opposition to this application? Okay, and you said there were no written submissions. Any questions from council before we go to discuss the application? Okay, the public meeting's closed. Okay, so we need a mover and seconder that the amendment to Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2025-052 Funston Bylaw be deemed to be read a first, second, third time, finally passed and numbered as bylaw number 2026-093. Councillor Stewart and Deputy Mayor Hinchberger, are there any questions regarding this application at all? Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. It's not really a question, it's more of a comment. I'm in favor of this. This is a real win-win. And as you're well aware of, Council, if it's something that the Huron folks don't like, we hear about it. So having no comments, Amy, was a good thing. People are in favor of this. This is really a win-win for us. They're going to sell their bigger house. They're severing their big house that probably could sleep about 10 and move into a smaller new building and everything. So it's a real win-win for everybody because the tax base will increase and there'll be another new house on the property. So I'm in 100% support of this, and just for acknowledgement, I live directly west of this property. Thank you.
Further questions? All in favor? And that's carried. Amy, thank you very much for your presentation tonight. So now we move on to the Kincardine Municipal Airport Expression of Interest Review. So we need a mover and seconder that council endorse staff entering into discussions with the Kincardine Airport Interest Group to establish a formal volunteer partnership framework to assist with airport operations, promotion, and long-term sustainability, and further that council acknowledge the alternative future operating options available to the municipality, including procuring a new airport service provider contract through competitive process. Number 2, establishing a dedicated internal municipal staff position responsible for airport operations. Or 3, exploring airport divestiture options through sale, lease, or transfer of ownership to eliminate annual operating deficits and future capital obligations associated with airport ownership. Moved by councillors Monroe and Steinoff Gray. Discussion, please.
Nobody wants to go?
Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, through your chair. My evolution of thinking about the airport's gone through a lot of change over the past 4 years. At the beginning, I'm very much an idealist and look at the official plan and a vision of a multimodal transportation network here that integrates road, rail, airport, even the lake. It's been progressively harder over the course of 4 budget cycles to look at a table in the budget document and see red ink for the airport. And that's only for the operating budget. It doesn't even consider capital requirements going forward. I support this resolution. I want to give the airport all the opportunity in the world to be successful, but I do have some reservations, and they're economic and social. Economically, the main economic drivers in the municipality of Kincardine are energy, agriculture, and tourism. And I think since the lands for the airport were bought several decades ago, it's always been sort of on the cusp of it becoming a driver. It's currently not a driver of the economy in the local area. And in fact, just to be honest, without any prejudice, that probably the land on which the airport is more valuable economically currently than the airport itself. The other part would be socially. I recognize that we shouldn't use as a measure of whether we're going to spend money or not, whether we get a return. If we did that, we wouldn't do things like parks and recreation, et cetera, stuff like that. But I always think we have to look at any one thing in the big picture. And the big picture for me is that when I sit here and I look into the gallery, and I know there are representatives that are supporters of the airport, but I often try to imagine myself imagining the other groups that are looking for social benefits that aren't sitting in there. Ones who would be advocating for healthcare, ones who would be advocating for affordable housing, and the ones who represent the tax base that are already saying my taxes are too high and I need them lowered or not raised any more than necessary. So these are the concerns that I have. The one is there's been comments made from time to time on there's rather an active social media conversation going on, and some reference to, for instance, the Saugeen Municipal Airport over between Brockton and Hanover. And the one thing I'd just like to point out about the position that we find ourselves in is I think it's an inescapable fact over the course of 4 years that we have over $1 billion of municipal assets. And right now, we do not, and with the current level of senior level funding of municipalities, we do not have a sufficient tax base to support and maintain and rehabilitate everywhere we have. By comparison, the Saugeen Municipal Airport is operated under a tripartite agreement between the municipalities of West Grey, Brockton, and Hanover. And combined, they have a population, according to the 21 census, of about 30,000 people. So they generally, all other things being equal, have twice the carrying capacity. So I'm just going to circle around again. I would have firsted, if that is a word, or seconded the original motion, and I support giving the KAIG a chance, and I wish them, if the resolution passes, I wish them best of luck, but you have a challenge ahead of you.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you, through you. I'm not going to speak too much to the broader implications. I think I'd like just to speak a little bit tonight, specifically about the first part of the motion. So first of all, I appreciate that the expression of interest went out. I'm glad to hear that we had some applicants come in. I'm especially glad to hear that KAIG put their name forward to step up and possibly help operate the airport. Looking at airport operations across the province, there's a real big mix of how they're done. One of the things I'm wondering if the manager could speak a little bit to, like you talk about a volunteer partnership framework. Are we looking at potentially entering into an agreement with KAIG as a standalone entity? Are they coming on board as volunteers under our volunteer policy? What kind of framework are we looking to develop there?
Yeah, so through you, Mayor, the exact framework will have to be discussed with KAIG on how, they are going to manage the volunteer group. There are multiple opportunities that we could go through as like under our volunteer policy, or that they're a group with a separate agreement that would be just for the airport. So we can explore those options and sit down with KAIG as a next step to see exactly where they're thinking and where they can help out to get an agreement in place and go forward from there.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, I think it's worth looking at both of those options and seeing which one would help us have the most oversight and control. And the agreement itself is looking specifically only at operations and planning, not, there's no capital agreement coming with this.
That's correct.
Councillor Stanoff-Gray?
Thank you, through you, Chair. I don't want to spend a lot of time belaboring the whole discussion, but as you know, I've always been a strong supporter of the airport. I do believe that when you get rid of things that you have, it's not so easy to get them back once you think that you need them. And so for me, this isn't something that we should consider. Like, I know divesting is on there, but for me, it's something you have to think really long and hard about, because it's very hard to undo those things. And usually 10 years later, when you're looking back with a lens saying, why did I do that? We've had those moments already in this council where we've looked at previous decisions saying, why did we do that? So like, from my perspective, I think it is very important that we give this an opportunity to prove itself viable and a fair opportunity. I'm very excited at the suggestion of a partnership, and I think it's important because we need the support of the folks who are rallying against it, but we also need an opportunity to see if our demands are going to change and those sorts of things. So I really appreciate I don't know the word I'm trying to find here, but it feels like a better approach, like a staged approach, so we can try it and assess it, and I think that's important.
I think the assessment part is the key to both the operations and the success of it too. Evaluation to tinker. Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I might have a little different point of view, but I'm in support of the airport, but I think that we've neglected the airport for quite a long time. We talk around it, but we don't talk about it. You know, you look at Hanover, Hanover's got two partners, Walkerton, Brockton, and also West Grey. We are the only airport in the county of Bruce. Where's the county on this? Where is Bruce Power? Where is OPG? Why don't we go and talk to Port Elgin? They have a grass one-way. They might want to join us. We need this kind of focus. And one of the things that I'll be very honest with you, I'm a little disappointed by the operations in the last year. We went from a service provider, and then the staff took it on. And the staff, to be fair, they didn't really have the expertise. But I had a call from somebody who wanted to actually build an engine maintenance hangar here. And he's now building one in Hanover because nobody from our staff returned the call back about 6 or 8 months ago.
Stop.
I'm just telling the truth.
Not true. Because those calls were returned. I know that. So
Then we turned it down.
it was, there were some other factors involved in the discussion, so we'll just leave that
Okay.
part out. Okay.
Then I
Thank you.
apologize, but what I'm saying is that it's all stuck in the staff. We need, and I make a friendly amendment to this, if we're going to go ahead, and I'm full support of this group to work ahead, but I think one of the council members should be on that group too. I think that we're not really hearing the whole story about the airport. I get a lot of texts from the various groups and everything. We're not collecting landing fees. We're having problems here. We're having problems there. I think it's important that the council needs to be there, and I think that maybe a Ward 2 councillor should be involved with this so you can report directly. Because like the mayor said, there was an opportunity for us. I didn't hear about it. Did anyone else hear about it except the mayor and maybe the staff? It would have been interesting if the mayor would tell us what happened to that whole deal, because the guy's building a $750,000 hangar over in Hanover, and you're moving his business from Goderich to Hanover, and it hires 3 staff and everything else. So I'm a little bit confused, and he actually contacted me because he heard I was interested. Anyways, I'm supportive, but a friendly amendment I think we need, and maybe the mayor can do this. Somebody on council needs to be on this committee to move it ahead. Thank you.
So would you like to propose a friendly amendment, Councillor Stewart? So, no, it changes
Okay, so
the structure.
we're going to add that. I think my amendment would be to add a counselor to this new group. working with the Kincardine Airport interest community and the staff. And that counselor would be responsible to report directly to council.
Is there a seconder for the proposed amendment? Deputy Mayor Hinchberger, discussion? Councillor Kavanaugh, please.
Thank you very much, and through the chair. As a point of clarification, I was not aware that this was sort of striking a committee to sort of go forward with this. It was seen as more of just a administrative action that was going to be happening. Out of curiosity, perhaps Councillor Stewart could sort of explain how he envisions this committee that he's starting would function? Oh, okay.
What I suggested that this was somehow analogous to what we did for the Kincardine Agricultural Society negotiations related to the ag building. That's all I said to him.
Okay, so the difference with that is there were specific negotiations regarding that. This is, it reads here that the discussions that we are directing staff to have are to set up the partnership. Like it's not the negotiation of this is how it's going to work, this is what we're going to do, this is how much the fuel is going to be. This discussion, from my understanding, is how we set up the arrangement so that those decisions can be made subsequent to the establishment of this group of people. Corey, is that kind of where we're heading to?
Yes, through you, Mayor, that's correct. Is the initial ask is to get an establishment with KEG to do the operating portion of it. How that looks with a council member as far as an overall group, that would have to be discussed further. If there's options, we can certainly review them.
Councillor Stranoff-Gray, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. In reference to that, I actually thought the involvement of council with the agricultural and gymnastics with a council member actually made sure there was full clarity, and it seemed like we came to a good resolution. So I think it is very positive because you kind of have an impartial party that will make sure that this council's informed. So I think it's actually, I'm fine with it. I think it's a good suggestion.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you, through you. So again, for clarity, my understanding is that we're asking staff to enter into discussions with the airport interest group. A framework would have to come back for final council approval. So I would think we would have pretty good clarity on what that looks like. Councillor Stewart perhaps could provide us with some clarity on, is he expecting to be part of those framework discussions or the actual operational part? Because there's that's two different things. Yeah, no, sorry. I guess right now all we're doing is asking staff to enter into negotiations about the framework, about how KEG perhaps wants to operate and what we need in order to, keep our Transportation Canada stuff. Is there, and I'm not sure that there's a need necessarily for council to be there if it's coming back to council, but perhaps, are you suggesting something longer term, like being part of KEG running things?
Thank you. And through you, Mayor, I'm suggesting longer term. We used to have a committee airport that was made up of council and community and also pilots and things like that. I think we need to push this forward. We've all been sitting around council. I've been here for 8 years talking about airport, going around and around and around. We need to have somebody who is responsible for the budget. This thing is about a $2 million asset, and it costs us about $200,000 a year to run. It's about 1% of our things, but we need to start to push this out. It's just not operation. I don't think the councillor would be really involved in the operation because most councillors, I don't know if anyone owns a plane. So we probably wouldn't know that, but we can start pushing ahead and getting some of these ideas and start going towards, let's talk to Port Elgin. Let's talk to Bruce Power about the isotopes. Let's talk about other things because we're really trying to figure out to bring more revenue to this airport because most of us want to keep it. Thank you.
Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you. Through you, perhaps a question for clarity for Councillor Stewart. I'm not sure if that isn't something that we would expect the role of staff to be, just in what he's just described, and what a councillor would bring or offer that isn't what a staff would be able to offer in terms of connecting the group and the work that's being done to council.
No, I think it was more of a comment, I think. Councillor Steinhoff Gray, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. And I don't want to muddy the waters, but based on the comments that I've heard, there's a couple of things. One, we absolutely need to go into these negotiations with our volunteer base. I think that nothing's going to change that. So I'm almost wondering if there's almost two separate motions on the table here. And we've muddied the water just a little bit, because I do think that the airport is important enough to have a committee for everything that's been important that's facing our communities. We have set up those joint committees so that there is the influence of our council with the staff, with our volunteers and the public, so that we can make good policy decisions. And so for me, I feel like we've almost branched together something that maybe is two separate motions.
Agreed, because the framework that staff will establish with CAIG is one thing. Once that's done, and if there is a committee formed of some sort, an organizing team, whatever you want to call it, then the addition of a councillor to that is a subsequent. For me, the councillor doesn't need to be there as they establish the framework. They need to be there as they do the committee work subsequent to the formation of the partnership team. Councillor Kavanagh, you had a question.
It was more of a comment. I was just going to say through the chair that it sounds like what Councillor Stewart's advocating is actually option 2, but instead of a staff position, it would be a councillor that was running all that. Mirrors Councillor Williams' comments.
Deputy Mayor?
The comment I was going to make was I'd really just rather us, to use the pun, get up to the 30,000 foot level and look down at this rather than down on the runway. And one of my desires, I almost have less concern over how we go about this, but I'd really like to get away out of the they said, because it's really impossible as a decision maker to wade through that. So whatever is necessary in order to get this off of a they said and into a factual footing. The only thing I would say is that if you send somebody from council, akin to what we did for the Kincardine Ag Society, that person reporting back could provide information that at that point in time, council could decide whether it wants to go a committee route. I'm always concerned that every time we get into a resolution and we want to change the scope, the more we change the scope, I see the level of difficulty in getting it through rise exponentially, and I'd like to avoid that.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, I'm actually going to use a different analogy. I'm going to use my experience working with the Kincardine Trails, because it seems very similar to me in the way that they are both supporting us operationally and supporting us in terms of strategic planning and looking for partners and expansion. And those are kind of two different buckets. What I'm a little bit wondering is whether, Councillor Stewart, you would be comfortable if we went through having staff negotiate the formal partnership. That'll probably involve quite a bit. But I think we can make a recommendation to the future council that a committee or a process be established to look at the long-term planning, because where we're at in our term, it's a bit awkward, but that is something that we've done with our, say, for our healthcare committee, where we had some members of council, some community members come together and really hammer out a plan. Right now, our 2013 strategic plan for the airport's a little bit outdated. It'd be nice to see some updates on that to help inform which of the 3 long-term plans, or whether the agreement with KEG can be a long-term plan. But I think that I see those as like 2 separate processes. One is about how do we get operational help to keep things running, and the other is what is our longer term plan. And I think that there's benefit to both, but I don't think that they both fit within one motion.
Councillor Stewart, please.
I'm sorry, through you, Chair, I disagree. I think it's important that we start looking at this now. We always can pass on our ideas to the next council. I think it's great that the staff's working on the operation, but there's no timetable on this. This could take a year. You know, it could take it 2 years. I don't really know. We tried this, you know, we had a problem with our service provider last year in May, remember? We all were here. And we decided to go with staff, and staff said to us that they, you know, they probably could run it for less cost. But now they're finding out that maybe that's not quite the case, and that's understandable, you know, because nobody really has the expertise of airports, especially probably staff working. I don't think we have a pilot among us. So, you know, I understand that we want to work with this group, and I agree, but there's no reason why a counselor can't be overseeing this during even the operational sort of type thing, not be involved with the operation, but seeing how it all's come to be. So you can report directly back to council and keep working on these other ideas to try to boost up revenue. I don't really see a problem. I mean, we were very successful with a situation with the gymnastics and the agriculture, and it turned out to be a win-win, having the staff working with a counselor, myself, and working with the 2 volunteer groups, and it turned out to be favorable. So why wouldn't we want to do the same thing with an airport that's a $2 million asset that we want to really have some sort of type of relief from the taxpayers? So I don't quite understand. I see 2 separate things, but I don't really see it. The counselor doesn't have to be involved, but at least the person would be an oversight. Thank you.
Councillor Monroe, please.
First of all, I just want to say working with an organization with subject matter experts and having them involved is a very important step of this. That insight, that personal interest that they have, I think it's going to help steer things in the right direction. The level of, I guess, involvement with council, I think, can vary. Can be worked out maybe at a future time, but I think at the very least, like, you know, when you have 2 groups that can work together, I think it's great things are going to happen. So, you know, I appreciate the group stepping forward and want to have some involvement with this. So. End of comment. Thank you, Mayor.
So if I may be so bold, I do not disagree with Councillor's intent, Councillor Stewart's intent for what it's going to look like. I've heard Councillor Steinhoff-Gray's analysis that it kind of splits into a couple of different things here. And I'm wondering if there is a more logical and understandable path forward. One being, I'm going to ask you offhand to withdraw the amendment so that we can pass this motion. We can determine which way we're going to go to establish this or whether we're going to do something different. And I think from what what I've heard, we're predominantly supportive of establishing this relationship, staff and the airport interest group to establish a formal volunteer partnership. I think we're on board with that. I think that the more effective way is to allow staff and the airport interest group to establish that framework, and then to have the counselor come along beside subsequent to that, so that, like, the counselor's not helping with the establishment of the framework, let them work it out. But then, you know, if there's voting or even if it's a communication thing, we can easily appoint a counselor to that position, and I would happily support that subsequent motion that, you know, when all that is done, then council appoints a counselor to start attending the meetings or whatever, to be the communication channel or the advocate or whatever you want to call them. So I'm wondering, Councillor Stewart, you get to choose because it's your motion. Are you interested in a process like that, or do you just want to go ahead with the vote on the amendment?
Thank you for allowing me to make a choice, Mayor. I'm okay. I'll hold off. I'll defer the motion for now. But I do want to see some sort of update within January about how's the meeting going, because I don't want to see this working until June, July and everything and finding out that the 2 parties aren't really working out very well. So maybe what I can do is sort of get directions from the staff to say there'll be a report back to council how the discussions are going to us in January. Would that be fair, Amanda?
Councillor Steinhoff-Gray?
Thank you. Yes, I would be aligned with that. The only thing that I would insert there, because I think that what Councillor Stewart was going for when he made this motion was ensuring transparency, that we hear both sides. So I think maybe it's as simple as they work through the framework, we also invite our friends at CAG to provide their own report at the same time, or a joint report with our staff, so that we get the straight version from both sides. I think that would pretty much solve for what I think across the table was trying to solve for.
That's why
Thank
we
you.
get minutes of committee meetings, because they are draft minutes until both, like, partners read it and approve it, and then submit it to council. So, like, we already have that process.
Yeah, it's just right now, if CAG wants to speak to us, they put in a request to speak to us, and they have been denied in the past, and I do know this. So when they've asked for delegation and been denied, if we make this part of the motion, then I know that I'm going to hear from them.
Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, through you. Perhaps just for a question for clarity, the resolution is to establish a formal volunteer partnership framework. I assume perhaps a partnership framework that's being drafted would talk about things like reporting, what's going to be reported when, what the parameters are that the partners will look into, and is it something that council, that would come back to council for approval, the draft framework?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So, with the clerk's permission, so did I hear correctly, you are willing to defer your amendment?
Yeah,
Withdraw?
I'll withdraw the
Withdraw.
amendment with the conditions we talked about, directions to the staff. Thank you.
Yep. So I am going to ask the clerk, the motion we have here is council endorsed staff entering into discussions to establish a framework to assist with airport operations promotion, long-term sustainability, and enhanced communication. Well, specifically, like, what we're asking for is to be kept fully aware of the progress, the pathway that staff and the airport interest group are following. We also have direction from Councillor Stewart, and I believe there's consensus amongst the council here that whether it goes on the priority resolution list, I'm not sure, just that there be a councillor appointed to the committee, team, organization, whatever you want to call it, whatever the framework ends up calling the relationship, we would ask that a councillor be appointed to that. So, an enhanced communication, is that? Jason, you are the mover of this motion. Are you all right if we add that enhanced communication portion to the end of the motion?
Yes, I am. I think with any new relationship, there's going to be some gaps that need to be identified, and having somebody involved, I think will be good. So.
Councillor Stanoff-Gray, you all right with that? Okay. Is there any further discussion about the proposed motion? All in favor? Okay. Subsequent to that, Deputy Mayor, I bet you'd like to move that once the framework is established, that council will appoint a councillor to be part of that team, and that's be put on the priority resolution list. Okay, well, we'll do it for this term of council.
Yes, I just say that, yeah, I didn't want you to put words in my mouth. There's enough people in the public doing that anyways. There we go.
Is there a seconder for that, Councillor Stewart? So, in the event that the discussion leads to the formation of a team, council will appoint someone to that for the remainder of this term, which will set the precedent for subsequent terms. And this will go on the priority resolution list. Any further discussion? All in favor? Good, there we go. Thank you for your patience, and seriously, we're trying to do what's right for the community and the airport. That is the intent of the conversation. Now, I know that there'll be a heck of a conversation going on out there immediately afterwards, so I would really encourage you, as the debate heats up outside, could you just take it outside the front door because it gets really loud in here. But you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting too, if you want.
2 hours later.
Okay, we're moving on to the proposed decorative and commemorative crosswalk policy. We need a mover and seconder. The council approve the decorative and commemorative crosswalk policy. Moved by councillors Kavanaugh and Blackwell. Is there any discussion about this? Lori, is there any comments you'd like to make regarding the policy?
Through you, Mayor Craig, I can answer any questions. I just would like to point out that this was sort of formalizing a former guideline that was done up by the Arts, Culture, and Heritage Committee. And this really is to make it more formalized. The application the application form was included in the package. And the biggest change is that staff recommend that the installation costs be the responsibility of the requesting community group, and that once installed, the municipality will assume responsibility for ongoing maintenance. That's the same, but the fee for the installation would be the community group's responsibility.
Questions? Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, through you. I guess maybe just out of curiosity, I know, well, I think we have 2 in the town of Kincardine right now. What are some examples of other kind of crosswalks in different communities? Like, what kinds of things do we see?
Through you, Mayor Craig, there's a different variety depending upon the sort of culture of the community. I've seen things like mural type crosswalks, as well as there could be things, for example, if there is a reunion, there are types of crosswalks that can be made like that. But very much there's different styles out there.
Just for clarity, I think we have at least 3. The Pride Crosswalk, Indigenous down at the flagpole, Reconciliation, and the Legion one. Yeah, okay. Thanks for pointing that out, that different kinds. Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you. Is this working? Yes. Okay. That was going to be one of my points is in the policy statement right now that it includes a certain locations for the crosswalk. It doesn't include the bottom of Harbor Street. Is that something that we're not planning to maintain? Because I know we've also got similar artwork on the old fire hall.
Through you, Mayor Craig, we aren't planning on maintaining the bottom of Harbor Street, but we also didn't identify specific locations in this policy. This would be the review committee's job to review the location based on a whole bunch of different evaluation criteria. So the former policy had locations. This one doesn't have locations.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. It's just a question. Do we have a lot of requests coming in? You know, I'd be very interested. I think the public would too. Do we have a lot of requests?
Through you, Mayor Craig. No, we don't, Councillor Stewart.
So I suppose the one question that comes to mind is regarding the funding. And I don't know the balance sheet for an organization like Kincardine Pride. I don't know that they have a funding source. And, you know, when there's an application from a group that has no funding, you know, just for instance, I'm just making one up here, you know, Save the Children Fund from the UN, and we're going to put one in for Save the Children. There is no group to fund that other than ourselves. How does an application like that work?
Through you, Mayor Craig, there are grants available that groups could apply to. Also, our own community investment grant could also be a pot to apply for. But it's also council's purview. If you ever at one point wanted to support one, like that's you know, yeah.
Deputy Mayor, comment?
The manager's strategic initiatives took the words out of my mouth.
Councillor Blackwell?
Sorry, I was actually, through you, going to mention if I remember correctly, which doesn't always happen, we used to actually have tartan crosswalks. So Kincardine tartan was included in some of our crosswalks. Under this policy, we can choose to be the applicant and apply crosswalks. Is that correct? If we were saying like, hey, we'd really love to have the Kincardine tartan somewhere.
Through you, Mayor Craig, I'm not aware of the tartan crosswalk, but I imagine that in our history we'd find that out, and I'm not sure how that would go. I would imagine the municipality could put a crosswalk in if that was the choice.
Okay, Councillor Monroe, please.
Through you, Mayor, just a couple questions. Is there an annual renewal to the crosswalks?
Through you, Mayor Craig, there isn't an annual renewal. What there is maintenance, and so we do watch them, make sure that they're in good shape, and have the ability to maintain them, and that's part of what we have put in the proposed policy.
Okay, that was the second part of my question. What happens when it deteriorates over time? So, thank you. Yeah.
All in favor of the policy? And that's carried. We move on to the e-scooter pilot project review. So just because I'm going to read one of them, and if nobody moves or seconds it, or it's defeated, then we'll move on to the next one, okay? And I'm just going to start at the start. We need a mover and seconder that the municipality maintain its current status outside of the provincial e-scooter pilot project and continue to provide education on e-scooters. Moved by Councillors Kavanagh and Blackwell. Any information you want to provide first, Clerk, or just questions? Any questions, comments regarding the differences, why we should do one, why we shouldn't do the others, or Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, I've been watching this kind of across the province as various communities of various sizes have tried to figure out how to manage this. The majority of the costs are being borne by municipalities, while the regulations remain really quite unclear. I think that I recognize people are going to use them. I recognize that that's happening. And the option to regulate them is there, but I think the reality of investing in trying to regulate them at this point when there isn't a clear provincial framework where the costs are going to be borne specifically by us, where there's a lot of reporting requirements under the pilot. For me, I think I would prefer to wait. The Accessibility Committee talked quite a bit about places like larger cities that have not opted in specifically because of accessibility, like Toronto and other major cities. They can become quite a challenge if they're left on sidewalks or parked, or when people are using them on sidewalks. It's a danger for many people with disabilities. So that's my feeling is that I think that we should not necessarily take on additional costs at this time on something that the province is still trying to figure out. But I am one of 9, so.
Councillor Steinhoff-Gray, please.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, I am aligned, and part of my rationale isn't just the framework, but like every time I turn on the news, there's more information about hospitalizations from the scooters. Like they said 40%, we're 40% higher in the number of injuries happening as a result of these scooters. And I find it shocking. We've had 837 hospitalizations from April to March, in a 1-year time period. And of those, 20% were head and brain injuries in the head. Like these are significant things that we have to consider about. To make sure when they are used, they're used safely and that we have the right precautions built in. And so I'm not comfortable at this point. I just want to put that out there that in addition to the details provided by Councillor Blackwell, like there's also these safety concerns, and we have to figure out how we ensure that our communities remain safe. They can go quite fast, so with our roadways, you need rules about when they're on the road, when they're on the sidewalk. Like there's so much to it, and we cannot be remiss in it.
It's not a laughing matter, but there's an awful picture comes in my head of a bylaw enforcement officer chasing a scooter down the street because you can't catch them. But they have no authority to stop them anyway. Like, it's the weirdest thing, like the convoluted regulations. Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, through you. I did want to start by thanking the clerk for doing all of the research on this. I know that I had initially, we'd had some initial discussions about it. It came up at the South Bruce OPP Detachment Board, and I know that all the municipalities are trying to figure out how to manage it. We had a lot of scooters come out into the community, and often, like we see with kind of different things that happen in the community, municipalities or governments have to play catch up, and you have to figure out how to address things. And I certainly think what I've seen even since May or June, when we've started these conversations with the communications that we've been doing, with the work that the OPP has been doing to inform people about, that it is illegal, that you cannot be using them on our streets. Personally, I've seen a reduction in the use, which is great. And again, largely for the reasons that Councillor Steinhoff-Gray has referenced. I've been kind of back and forth on this one a little bit, but I think at the end of the day, like, one of the reasons why I wanted to be brought to this table is because I thought it was important for council to at least have a discussion and make a decision about it, rather than just not kind of have like be an active part of the conversation. I think it's nice in communities to have a variety of mobility options, or options to kind of get around. E-bikes are in our community. They're a lot more expensive than e-scooters, so it provides a bit more of a less expensive option for people to get around. But I'm of the view right now, because we are in a pilot phase, because the province is collecting a lot of data from those that are choosing to use it, that perhaps we are in the best position right now to wait and see what happens next, and be ready should the province decide to make them open in all communities or not make them illegal. And so I am comfortable kind of not advancing a bylaw at this time.
Question, please. The pilot project stays live till the end of 2029. I think that was indicated in the report. From your perspective, should this be an annual review of where we are, or should we just wait till the end of 2029?
Thank you, through. I do think it's worth continuing to monitor municipalities that might be uptaking the pilot, and in particular, perhaps the processing costs of implementation. I am a little bit, not concerned, but should the pilot end and the province decide to advance it, then we'd want to make sure that we were at least ready.
Deputy Mayor, you had your hand up. Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. And you, Chair, I have a little different opinion, as probably most of you realize this. I think we're forgetting one thing. And to be honest with you, this council, if we want to legislate against this or for it, I'm 100% with you. I think we're forgetting one thing. What's going on with the parents, with the kids with these, As parents, we teach kids how to swim to prevent drowning. We teach them how to ride a bike so they don't ride into a car. We teach the kids how to do all sorts of things. What's the responsibility of the parent? If your kid has a scooter, I really do think you need to teach the kid. And if it doesn't work out with all these injuries, I will be quite happy to legislate that we don't have them in our community at all for the safety of the kids.
Councillor, just as a thought,
Yes.
just because we really don't have authority over the parents either, is there, like I hear in your comments, a joint education opportunity?
I was getting to that.
You were getting to that.
I was
okay,
getting to
well,
that and saying
we can get
instead
there
of-
quicker.
Yeah,
That's all.
instead of getting into the pilot, I think on the website, we need to start to talk about the communication around these scooters. And so they'll be out there in the public, so the public can make their own decision and take on some of the responsibility instead of us taking on all the responsibility. So friendly amendment or whatever, I think we need to start to educate through our website about some of the conditions that we're hearing, especially with my fellow councillor with 800 and so accidents. That's serious. Thank you.
Clerk, please.
Through you, Mayor, I just want to follow up and highlight a few things. First of all, children, the only people who are even in a pilot community allowed to use these are people over 16, so 16 and over. So when we talk about children, anyone under 16 is not even envisioned in the provincial pilot. So I just want to make that clear. The other thing is for councils and members of the public, we do have information on our website. So the information is on our website, and it talks about the guidelines, et cetera. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Councillor Kavanaugh, please.
Thank you very much. And I can add to our clerk as well that our local schools have been very good, and the administrators of our local schools have also made every effort to educate and stand with the municipality in enforcing the laws to the extent we can.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
So I don't know. I don't think that this needs to be through you. I don't think this needs to be an amendment or anything, but to option one. But one element I would say is, yes, we're continuing to provide education. I appreciate the information that the clerk and the team have put out. I think we need to encourage the OPP to also be doing some education. And I think when we talk about, is there a point that we can see ourselves joining this pilot? I think that's a really intense conversation that we need to have with the OPP and their entire service area, because of where they would be operating under the provincial rules, it would be an OPP enforcement. So I think they would need to be active partners if we are to consider bringing this forward, that we would need their input and consideration.
Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, through you. I know earlier this year in the spring, the OPP has met with all of the school principals, has been talking to all the schools. They have their community engagement officer that's out there educating as well, and I think that they'll continue to do that education. It's certainly part of their plan. Like I said, I personally have seen a reduction in use in our community at least, and I'm not sure. And I just wanted to clarify that option one does include to provide education on e-scooters. So I think that even with option one, as a municipality, we will continue to, and I think the OPP will continue to as well. And so I think that that's an important part of it is, I know when this first came out, a lot of the communications we were getting from parents is that they didn't even know that it was illegal to use it under the age of 16. And so even that in itself, we've seen a shift in use because of that. And so I'm certainly happy with just ongoing education and awareness raising about both it being illegal, but also the risks.
Okay, we have option one on the floor, that we maintain our current status outside the provincial e-scooter pilot project and continue to provide education on e-scooters. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, so we move on to provincial data center playbook. We need a mover and seconder that comments be submitted to the Environmental Registry of Ontario in response to notice 026-0853 prior to the September 12th, 2026 deadline, advocating that the recommendations contained in this CAO 2026-10 report be included in the final provincial data center playbook, and that the recommendations contained in this report be forwarded to the County of Bruce for consideration and included in its submission to the Environmental Registry of Ontario in response to notice 026-0853. Moved by councillors Steinhoff, Gray, and Prenger. Alan, do you want to start off on this? It is a topic that the delegates to AMO heard a lot about, and it is rising in awareness in our municipality. So maybe you could give a broad outline of what the submission that we're offering sounds like.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to members of council. As we are all aware, hyperscale data centers has not only become a topic of conversation globally and nationally, but also locally. Yes, the municipality has received inquiries, just like we have received inquiries from other sectors that we promote in economic development. We answer their questions and provide them with information about our community. Given our location and experience, with our role as a host community for major energy infrastructure, our skilled energy sector workforce, and our experience supporting large-scale infrastructure and industrial activity, Kincardine will continue to receive inquiries. The provincial government recognizes that hyperscale data centers are reaching out to municipalities across Ontario. Therefore, the province is in the process of developing a framework that will guide this type of development in Ontario. The province's proposed data center playbook, which was released on October 13th, is intended to prioritize projects that provide meaningful economic and community benefits, minimize water usage, while protecting electrical reliability and ensuring that proponents pay the full cost of required electricity infrastructure. The draft framework for the province data center playbook is proposing an evidence-based approach to evaluating regulated data center projects over 1 megabyte, seeking connection to Ontario's electricity grid. If implemented, access to grid capacity for the regulated data center projects may depend not only on technical feasibility, but also on the project's contribution to the three core pillars they are promoting: economic development, digital sovereignty, and community benefits. However, there are a number of positives in the proposal. For example, a central principle is the proposed playbook is that data centers would pay full electricity costs, including funding necessary generation and transmission upgrades, so that other ratepayers do not bear them. In other words, electricity costs would be prevented from being shifted to households and other ratepayers. Digital sovereignty would also be a strategic assessment priority. Ontario also would only offer non-financial support to attract data center investments. Economic development and community investment would be expected from those proposing data center projects. However, the playbook is not perfect. To strengthen this proposed data center playbook, the province is seeking public input by September 12th. Now, the report before Council tonight has 13 recommendations for Council's consideration that would be forwarded to the Environmental Registry of Ontario, ranging from stronger requirements for municipal consultation, community benefits, municipal cost recovery, workforce impact assessment, emergency planning and response, environmental performance, community benefit benchmarking, and transparency. It's pretty weak on that. These recommendations would also be sent to the Bruce County as they have requested comments for their submission. And at the time, we are the only ones actually will be submitting. I do want to stress that the intent of this report has been to provide comments about the provincial data center playbook and is not intended to establish a municipal position in support of or in opposition to data center development within the municipality of Kincardine. Rather, it is intended to provide recommendations to the province that may strengthen the final framework for evaluating and managing this form of development. A strong provincial framework will assist the municipality as we look at our own internal controls on development, like our official plan, for example. We look forward to viewing the final version of the data center playbook, and we're expecting this probably the end of this fall. Thank you.
Okay, so councillors received the some information about that, and it's time. And in Alan's report, the most critical point is we're not determining tonight whether we're in support of or in opposition to. This is when somebody comes, and if we are to assess the application, what are we looking for? What do we need to be cautious about? How do we protect our municipality and make it still the best place to live? So with that in mind, questions for consideration. Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you Thank you to the CAO for this report. It was very comprehensive. It aligned with a lot of the comments I've actually already made. I have two questions. The first would be, I think it might be beneficial to do a media release or promotion of our position and encourage the community to potentially also provide feedback, let them know that this is a public process right now. The other question that I have is, obviously right now we don't have any development applications on this file, on this type of file. But we do have computer processing centers included within our comprehensive bylaw as a potential use for industrial. My question would be, the province doesn't sit again until October 27th at the earliest. There's a lot that I think needs to happen with this playbook to increase its usability. What is the likely scenario if an application comes between now and when this might be passed? Is it worth pausing for now until we can understand what the actual framework is going to be? Would something be grandfathered in before the playbook is put into place? I'm just trying to understand maybe where I don't like being caught in this middle place where we have recognized that there's some gaps, but we might have left the back door open.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor. On your first point, we will be releasing a social media release tomorrow, which will indicate some of the points in the report and the position of the municipality, which is this is just a information gathering to be sent to the province and to the county. To your other point, right now we do not have any serious proposals on the table that would trigger a concern, but to your point, we do have to look at our internal things like our official plan, for example, so we are prepared. But to have a moratorium on development of that type, I don't think we're there yet, you know, but we do recognize that we do have to take a serious look at our own internal workings and make sure we are prepared, but there isn't anything knocking on our door right now. So, thank you.
Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, through your chair. I really like the work of the report and the recommendations. I would like to make a comment that there's some stuff on the bottom of page 5 and on the top of page 6 that talks about environmental gaps in the playbook, but I don't think the playbook is meant to address environment. It's strategic initiative, impact on the grid. And I think what we need to realize in the context of all of these, you can't produce a project that's going to involve the potential for taking water, emissions, or waste without satisfying the requirements of the Provincial Environmental Protection Act or the Ontario Water Resources Act. And all of those are going to come with any of those applications to the Ministry of Environment are going to require trigger registry postings, et cetera. Like, I think this somehow, maybe to those who don't have enough experience in there, they're thinking that the playbook is meant to cover every aspect of a potential data center, but there is an existing framework environmentally that already exists in the province that exists as well. So I agree that I don't think moratorium or, I think I generally don't want to introduce extra processes into sort of things, and I feel on this front there are a number of existing processes that already exist to intercept or flag or identify something coming and get involved without us doing something ourselves.
So if you want to build a house or a barn or something, you have to do an environmental study and all sorts of things, and this is way more intensive than that, so point well taken. Councillor Stanoff, Gray, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just a comment before I said what I was going to say. I don't actually believe in the current framework there is a statutory requirement to post proposals for on the environment registry. So like, it was one of the gaps that I thought I had seen. Understood. For me, if you post a proposal, then you have stakeholder involvement. And if you don't have to post, then I'm nervous about the stakeholder involvement in some of the decisions. And that's fine. I'm not going to belabor it, but I just want to say I really appreciated the time and consideration that went into this, because we do need a proper framework. It's not like it's going away. It's not going to go away. So I really applaud the effort that went into it. Whether or not we can get those comments acknowledged and included is a totally different thing, but I do appreciate the effort that has gone into this.
Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you. Through you, similar to my colleagues, I appreciate the effort as well, and just the background and the thought that went into kind of what we should include in the recommendations to the province. And I do think it's important to reiterate that, to your point, CAO, that this isn't our position. This is just things that we want to make sure that the province takes into consideration as they're building out their own framework or their policy. Just a quick question. Perhaps at AMO or through conversations you might have had with your other municipal colleagues, are our considerations aligned with a lot of what other municipalities might be submitting? And just thinking, 100 voices are louder than one, especially if everyone's kind of reiterating the same message. And just wondering if you found that there's some consistency, or if you've heard.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Council, I haven't heard a great deal of commentary about this, and maybe there'll be more in the future, but right now it's been a little bit quiet.
We are kind of uniquely located with unique assets that make this kind of an interesting spot to consider that. Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you, and you, Chair. Yeah, there's the infrastructure question, because they need abundance of water, and that water comes from Lake Huron usually, and that's even federal. I'm a little surprised by this, by the province. The province is trying to get a 62 or 72% increase in our electricity fees. And all of a sudden I'm sort of going, well, let me see, they're building Port Hope because they need more electricity. We're building Bruce C because we need more electricity. We actually just did a turnaround on Pickering, and we did on Darlington. And I'm sort of going, and then you bring these data centers in that use incredible amount of electricity. I'm sort of going, well, where's all the spare electricity coming from? We don't seem to have enough right now. We're trying to build out. And the 62% is representing all these MCR projects that are very high cost. So I'm sort of trying to understand one thing there with data centers, and I understand data centers. I'm trying to understand the infrastructure of electricity and the cost of electricity to taxpayers. So I think that's going to come into play, but they're not asking for that right now. I see that. Thank you.
Councillor Stanoff Gray, and then the Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I thought I'd acknowledge that it was a very important topic when we were at AMO, because we participated in a side split. I'd say it's like a workshop with a bunch of other municipalities. Everyone's asking the same questions. One of the benefits for us is that we had individuals from Cambridge there who already have data centers, and they provided some of their experience. And to be honest with you, theirs was fairly positive feedback. Like, they had done it in a controlled mechanism. They were happy. I think the bigger complexity for us is the scale of these things, right? So I might be remiss in my comments to Mike, because I know individual data centers don't have to go on the registry, but based on the scale, they may have to be. So I was just doing a little fact checking. Sorry, Mike. So yeah, so I literally just, anyways, I think that the biggest thing around this, and like I've fallen into it myself, is because we can't talk in general terms. Like, a data center is not just a data center. It depends on the type and the size and the scale and the technology that's being used. And it's really hard because the technology changes so fast. So this is an ongoing conversation. It's going to be an ongoing thing that we deal with and try to grasp as municipalities. And we're not going to do it ourselves. And we also have to understand who owns what and what regulations we have to fall under. And the province plays a big role in this. So, you know, I wanted people to know it was a huge topic. It was a major topic. Even the keynote speakers were speaking to it. So I I just want to acknowledge that. I think it's important as we discuss it, because even I've fallen gap right now, proven by Councillor Hinchberger, so I'll go on the record. But the point I'm trying to make is I think that as we go through these evolutions, what we need to do is just deal in fact. Not fear, but in fact. And so I think if we work together and make sure that we're sharing information in the transparency that's been recommended by our CAO in this report, I think if we get there, that it's a good way to start the discussion.
Sorry, I'm going to skip you. Councillor Prenger hasn't spoken yet. Councillor Prenger, please.
You're up.
Thank you, through the mayor. I just wanted to recognize, and for the public listening, that again, this is comments to the provincial government about what we would like to see included in the playbook. And the playbook is basically their overall strategy, thank you, for what they want to see and bare minimums of requirements that things would have to meet. And we're asking for more detailed information in that playbook so that when proposals come to a municipality, it's easier for us to review a proposal and that kind of thing. But we have the option to weigh whatever proposal comes our way based on what our community needs and ability to support are. We don't have to, it's not like a planning application where if it meets the bare minimum requirements, we have to say yes. It would be a development proposal, and it comes to us and we get to evaluate it and approve it or not approve it, regardless of what happens here. But I think this is a very key first step in ensuring that the base requirements and strategy is outlined that we can rely on and fall back on in the future if one comes our way.
Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, to you, Chair. I was just going to double back to Councillor Stewart's comment about energy and power. The IESO, or the Independent Electricity System Operator, is responsible for forecasting demand and providing supply, and they produce an annual planning outlook report that I'll send to everybody that outlines generally over the horizon, I think it's to 2050, about what they're projecting and what they're doing. And I think on the subject of data centers, I think they're projecting by 2050, you could be looking at, I think it's between 8 and 12% of demand in the province will be data centers. Thanks.
Without which the use of emails and computers and phones will change drastically. Anyway, Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, I have so much to say on this topic. I'll try and keep it brief. I think everybody knows that I tend to give the province a pretty hard time quite a bit, but I'm actually fairly impressed with the initial run of the playbook. Obviously, the devil's going to be in the details. I think there's a lot more to work out. I really appreciate the comments provided by the CAO. Right now, it feels a lot of like prioritization rather than base requirements. One of the comments was made that it's not really being talked about too much across the province. One of the things that I have been seeing is a lot of communities talk about moratoriums or bigger communities. And I think that's one of the things that it really needs to be emphasized in the playbook is the province needs an even playing field. Small municipalities like ours and other rural municipalities just don't have the planning staff and the expertise to really understand what applications are coming forward, and it could be in a position where cities with more staff are able to punt them off to rural communities, and that would be really difficult. I think it's also, there was a comment made about facts versus kind of fear, and I think that's really important. There is more than 100 data centers that already exist in Ontario, and there's a real opportunity here to look to the Nordic model where there's more sovereignty and environmental protections than, say, you know, perhaps the model that's being used down south, which is not what we have here in terms of our planning regulations. So certainly I think there's a lot of room for improvement, but I am very appreciative that it's being something that's looked at proactively, that we're not just kind of waiting until a whole bunch of communities start kind of freaking out about it. It's nice to start to consider what we want proactively.
So we have the motion before us that the comments be submitted to the Environmental Registry of Ontario, and also that they be forwarded to the County of Bruce for consideration and inclusion in the county's submission as well. All in favor? Anyone opposed? That's carried. All right, are there any notices of motion this evening? Okay, we have one bylaw to consider. We need a mover and seconder that the decorative and commemorative crosswalks policy bylaw be deemed to be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, numbered as bylaw 2026-94. Moved by Councillor Williams and Councillor Stewart. All in favor? That's carried. So we move on to the consent agenda, and they're enacted as one motion unless a council member, or you, apparently you can do this too, would like to take one out for comment or discussion either at this meeting or subsequent. Any reports that any council member would like to have council consider? Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you. This is a question I should have asked prior, but 8.1BA, the South Bruce Detachment Board minutes. I'm just curious, it's been multiple months since that meeting was held. How often are we expecting to get meetings from that, or minutes from that board? Is this the last meeting that happened? No? Okay. It'd be nice to...
Through you, Mayor,
Yep.
they are only meeting quarterly, so they are only meeting. So the minutes from this quarter's meeting wouldn't be approved until the next. And it's, now it is separate from the municipality. We do send a council representative, but we don't control their so.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. And through you, this is going to sound a little funny, but 8.1A, Mayor Report. Thank you very much for the staff and yourself and the people in the council that went to the AMO, and that's a great report. Is there anything that you found really outstanding? It seemed to be a little different conference than a normal standard conference, so maybe I'll give you the floor and you can say what you like to say.
I will defer first to Councillors Prenger and Steinhoff Gray. Any comment about what you saw or heard at AMO this year?
I think that AMO has some similar tones that I've heard in other years, and it's just the reality that we're in. Councillor Hinchberger alluded to it even when we were talking about our asset management planning. It really foreshadows just about every accountability that you have in this chair. Asset management and making sure that the community infrastructure remains intact. That goes from roads to water to wastewater, to the facilities that we have. It's a huge job, and it's getting harder and harder to manage. I think understanding how you manage that, how you can create money out of nothing. I know sponsorship is a new theme topic that people are looking at. How do you create that backdrop that you're short on? So like for me, one of the overarching themes is we understand that asset management is becoming more and more and more of our responsibility, and it should be. And how do we creatively try to deal with the challenges that presents? And one piece that I would say, one of the breakfasts that I went to was actually a youth breakfast. And one of the really interesting things that I took back that I just like to suggest is I can't believe how many youth, both in like high school and university, are so passionate about their municipal communities. And the way they show up every day, and they've got really interesting ideas about policy, and you should never underwrite what those kids bring to the table. And so for me, I thought it was interesting, when they talk about the people in these municipal chairs that have touched them and inspired them and caused them to become involved. And I'd never really thought about how important it is in this chair to also get that community involvement at that youth level, because they're your future taxpayer. That helps them base when they want to come back in this community. And they had some really interesting policy challenges that they gave high schools as projects, some other municipalities. And I just think, when you have such a complicated problems in life, a fresh set of eyes with a little bit of, cup half full as opposed to half empty is probably an excellent perspective to gain. And so that was a surprise for me. I know it's not as important as some of the ministry discussions that we had on the challenges that we face in a community, but it was important. And so I would say there was a lot of little surprises where it changed my frame of reference while we were at AMO.
Councillor Prenger, anything?
Yeah, actually, the Councillor Steinhoff Gray already touched on it. The focus on asset management was interesting to me, and the fact that AMO is taking that and then also they're trying to produce products that counselors can use, which is great. And they're looking at onboarding of new counselors, which I also think is very important because I know how hard it was for a majority of new council to come in all at once. Having some toolkit or a package that you could use from AMO to support that onboarding would be great, and they're working towards building that, and asset management is one of the key factors in that, or they were talking about it being that, which I thought was great as well. And I'd like to commend our brand new CAO for his performance at AMO, and our staff member Sherry Leslie, the mayor as well, and also, of course, Councillor Steinhoff Gray. We had several ministerial delegations to attend, and I was quite impressed with our performance as a group and our interactions with those ministries and our ability to communicate our concerns this year. It felt very different than last year, and I was pleased with most of the outcomes. You can't get everything you want, right? But overall, I thought it went much better than previous experiences, and I think that has a lot to do with our combined experience now and learning from, lessons learned from last year and the year before, and the support of our new CAO and his experience and what he took there and how he supported us. So thank you.
That's two.
So I'll just comment on the noticeable absence of any cabinet ministers when we were at the delegations. Like there were none there. There might have been some somewhere, but we talked with a lot of parliamentary assistants and deputy vice assistant, corporate minister, something or other, a little bit down the chain. Most of them were interested. Some were fatigued. Some were condescending, but most were responsive and they understood the challenge. And if they didn't have you could tell right away whether they were going to afford you some sort of advice on how to proceed with where you're at, or whether they were, oh my gosh, just another municipality whining about something. So, could be a foretaste of things to come in the provincial cabinet, maybe post October 26, maybe, who knows?
Thanks for sharing.
Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you through your chair. The building services report through July looks like we're up the value of permits 30% year over year to $26.3 million. That ultimately ends up in a higher total assessed value in the municipality of Kincardine and a better capacity to carry an asset management plan. So, a lot of talk this year about effects on the economy related to our trade relationship in the United States, et cetera, and stuff like that. But at least here, we're keeping our head above last year. Good job.
So we need a mover and seconder. The council approve the recommendations contained in the consent agenda dated August 26, 2026, and direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. Councillor Monroe and Deputy Mayor Hinchberger. All in favor? That's carried. Council general announcements. Councillor Monroe.
No announcements at this time.
Councillor Williams.
No announcements.
Councillor Stewart.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, we have Gathering of the Bands this weekend. We also have our 175th Fall Fair on the long weekend, so we won't have another council meeting, so let's all attend. And the real big thing, and I believe you were mentioning it, Council Steinhoff Gray, is there's a survey right now, and it's the asset survey. It's so important for this community to understand that is our core business. So if we can get everyone out there to do the survey and at least get 1,000 people do the survey, then it comes back to us with a little more relevance than 100. But it's such an important thing. That is the basic things that we really concentrate on, our basic services. So thank you.
Councillor Steinhoff Gray.
Thank you through you, Chair. I have nothing left to say after Councillor Stewart's announcements.
Councillor Pranger?
The last 2 cruise nights of the year are coming up this Friday and next Friday. So September 4th, the last one. There's not one this Friday?
No. They keep asking.
Well, I was literally told yesterday that there is, so I'm sorry for misinforming everyone. I was misinformed. There's one left, everybody, on September 4th. Don't miss it.
Councillor Kavanaugh?
Thank you very much. No announcements at this time.
Oh, Councillor Blackwell?
Thank you so much. Through you, I just want to thank the staff that helped put on the Marine Heritage Festival on the weekend. Heritage Kincardine was there, as well as our tourism staff. It was really interesting, and I got to lead several walking tours through the community looking at our marine heritage, and had a really wonderful time. Additionally, before our next meeting, it will be the start of school. So all of our summer activities will be winding down. More and more kids will be out getting on buses, walking to school. So let's all just keep an eye out. I know we still have a couple more beach days between now and then, but we'll be here before we know it.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. I'd like to remind everybody again that the annual Afro-Caribbean Youth Awards are held on October 24th, 2026. They're dedicated to recognizing and celebrating the achievements of Afro-Caribbean youth residing in Bruce and Grey counties. And the aim of the awards is to honor and showcase the talents, accomplishments, and contributions of young individuals from that community. And the nomination window is still open. Thank you.
CAO?
Yes, I do. I have a couple of announcements. The municipality of Kincardine is developing a tourism strategy to guide how we grow and manage tourism in a way that supports residents, strengthens local businesses, and enhances the visitor experience. As part of developing this strategy, we are seeking input from residents, visitors, business owners, and event organizers through a public survey. Help shape the future of tourism in Kincardine by completing our tourism survey. Please visit Municipality Kincardine's website for more details. Next is the Kincardine Cubs are hosting the 2026 Senior AA Ontario Baseball Provincial Championships this weekend. That's from August 28th to the 30th. This tournament features top AA teams from across Ontario, with games taking place at Tout Field, at Kenogam Park, and also Dunlop Field in Port Elgin. This is a great opportunity to watch some high caliber baseball this weekend. Thank you.
So I'm not sure if everybody goes online to check out the magazines, but council was presented with Tuque magazine. It's the regional lookbook, and starting on page 48, page 48, there is a fabulous presentation regarding a walking tour of Kincardine and the sites that the author and his partner experienced while they were here. So check it online, perhaps. Tuque. Makes me just excited about Christmas. Yeah, they are. And our tourism student, Andrew. All the pictures.
We're going to actually color.
Therapeutic, restorative coloring. It's fabulous. Okay, moving on. So we need a mover and seconder that council move into closed session pursuant to Section 239 of the Municipal Act as amended for the purpose of considering closed session minutes dated July 22nd, 2026 and August 12, 2026. And a matter pertaining to litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, specifically Soaring Eagle's Ontario Land Tribunal application. And further, the council return to regular open meeting upon completion. Moved by councillors Williams and Kavanaugh. All in favor? That's carried.